Greetings, welcome to Greenbelt at Home. My name is Christopher Ricker. I'm a New York City Parks Environmental Educator in the Greenbelt, and today we're standing in the forest of High Rock Park. During this two-part virtual program, we will be covering the topics of knot tying, parts of a rope, and during the second portion of this video, facilitated by our environmental educator, Angel, you'll be learning how to utilize the skills of knot tying and ropes to make your own crafts at home. So before we jump into the world of knot tying, we should talk about the objects that we use to tie knots. So here I have some basic rope, and even though the rope kind of looks the same all the way through and through, there are different parts of the rope that we use to create different knots or to understand the workings of tying a knot. So to start, I want to show you the end of the knot. So when it comes to knot tying, this will be called your working end. The working end is the object that's working its way through the knot. So whenever during this video you hear someone mention the working end, we're talking about this portion. Either end of your rope could be the working end, depending on what you're doing at any given time. Also, parts of the rope where you grab a center part of it, where you create an arching, not full loop, but an arch, this is called a bite. So with different knots, you may have to use a bite in order to tie a rope onto itself, or you may have to use a bite if you want to create a loop around something and to run your working end through that. So here you would have your bite, and if you wanted to move your working end through a bite, that would look something like that. So now that we understand our parts of the rope, let's tie our first knot. This first knot is called a bowline, and we're going to set this bowline fixedly against this sapling. So first I'm going to take my working end, and my working end is going to go around the tree. Remember before when I was talking about taking a piece of the rope and making a loop? So we're going to make a bite by turning the key. So we're going to make a complete bite. Now I'm going to take not my working end, but the opposite end, and push it up through that bite to create a secondary bite. Now with my working end, I'm going to come through that bite, and I'm going to follow my rope back along itself with my working end, causing the knot to flip and creating my bowline. You can see that it's a really clean knot. Where the rope is overlapping is pretty flat, so there's not extra friction, because with tying knots, there's a nice saying, a not neat knot is a knot not needed. One of the knots that you're going to be able to use later when working with Angel on your craft is known as a prusik. There's a couple different prusiks that are used for different things, from anchoring to being able to move up a rope with another rope. For the sake of this, we're just creating an anchor. So I'm going to take a bite of this rope, and I'm going to go around my fixed object. Now I'm going to take both of my working lines, both the fluffy and the non-fluffy one, and I'm going to take it up through and pull it down. You can see that this bite is now creating almost like a small tightening mechanism on that rope, and now this rope is anchored to this tree midsection. So our third knot today is going to be a type of hitch, and this is known as a clove hitch. Clove hitches can be tied in a couple different ways, but today I'm going to show you how to tie a clove hitch mid-rope on a fixed object. So firstly, we're going to want to make either known as Mickey Mouse ears or two elephants colliding. You be the judge. So I'm going to turn one and create my first ear. Now you notice the working end is coming behind it. I'm going to create another bite, but this time I want to make it in the opposite direction so that this portion is coming across the front of this. Now these can either look like two Mickey Mouse ears or two elephants with their trunks on opposing sides. Once I have my two bites, I'm going to have them cross over themselves, and then I'm going to need a volunteer's finger to act as my staging area. So you can see how that's crossed on itself. Now the clove hitch comes tight on itself, and now you have your rope secured on one end with 2 working ends that you can use to anchor other objects.
Hi everyone, my name is Angel Ellers and I am here to bring you part 2 of this Greenbelt at Home video teaching you how to make knots, tie knots, and this part we're going to do an activity and a craft so that you can really get your hands into making and tying the knots yourself and having something cool to take with you. And it's actually something that you may have had some experience with in the past if you ever went to camp or used and made something called lanyard, and I know I did when I was a kid. So here's an example of a keychain that has knots tied in the plastic lanyard strands. And so that's something that I think a lot of people have done, and this stitch is called a cobra stitch, and we're gonna learn that it's actually a knot called a square knot. So the things that you're gonna need here today are a ruler that has at least 1 foot of length. We're gonna need about 3 feet. We're gonna need a key ring, a pair of scissors, a lighter with parental supervision. We're going to use that. We're also going to need something called paracord, because instead of using plastic lanyard, we're going to use this 550-pound test strength cord that is used in parachuting and tying strings in camping situations, survival situations, and even used in the military. So what we're going to be making today is a really cool keychain. And sometimes people make a bracelet with this same stitch, which is the cobra stitch, and they'll call it a survival bracelet because they got the opportunity to learn how to tie the knots, but then they also have this emergency length of cord if they ever need to snip it, and then they have, you know, whatever length the thing is. This will be about 6 feet of cord, but this belt that I had made previously was about 150 to 100 feet of cord. Okay, so let's start the activity. Okay, so we are going to start by finding an anchored location to fix our key ring to, and I just so happen to have a clothespin glued to a brick wall, so that is just about the best we could get. I'm going to need 2 lengths of the paracord, and I got 2 different colors. I have green and red just so that you can see easier the differences in the cords as we're tying the knots. So we're going to do the same thing on both knots, and Chris already taught you the prusik knot. So we're going to start by creating a bite, looping that bite right in the back of your key ring, bringing it down, opening up the bite so it's a bigger loop, and bringing both of the working ends through. And then you just gently tighten it. You can even help it out by pushing up the back and tightening it. So that's just 1/2. We're going to have to do the other half as well. We'll bring up the center of the red piece, create another bite, and do the same exact thing. Bring it through the back of the keychain, bring it down, open up the loop, and bring those 2 working ends through the body, and tighten it up again. You're going to want to make sure that they are both evenly as tight, and then you're ready for your next step. The center 2 pieces are going to stay together this whole entire time. So they are just going to act as the body of the cobra that you're making. And the piece on the left and the piece on the right are going to be the 2 pieces that are working together to wrap around it. So we're going to start with the first half of a square knot, which is one of the more common foundational knots that you're going to find in different macrame activities. And we're going to start with the green one on the left and make what looks like a 4. Okay, it's going behind the 2 body pieces, making this opening like a 4, and then on the right side, we're going to take our red paracord, wrap it behind the green so that we're securing that cord there and right through the head of the 4 on the left. And if we bring them down together and they're loose, they look kind of like that. And then we're going to gently bring them up and tighten them evenly. You can do this pretty slowly. Make sure that it is even and secure. So that is the first half of your square knot. And the second half of your square knot is going to be the exact opposite of that. So we're going to make a 4 with the red string this time in front. Then we're going to take the green string and secure that front red paracord, bring the green behind and through the front of the red 4. And so that is the opposite. And as we tighten it up, we can see what a complete square knot looks like. And it's going to be this step repeated over and over until we have gone to the length that we want to go to. And in this case, for a keychain, we're probably going to want to go about 5 inches. So let's see about how far that's going to be. 5 inches is right about here at the bottom of this here brick. So this is where we're going to need help from the adults, right? Because we are actually going to cut our strands with about 2-3 millimeters of space left over, because we are going to, after we cut them, have to singe the end. So these are synthetic materials, so when we burn them, they're going to kind of shrivel together and become really hot. So be careful when you do this, and with your adult supervision, we're going to burn the end until it gets nice and close up to the cobra itself, and take the edge of our scissors on the hot plastic and push it. And that is the way that we're going to secure that end, so we don't have to tie any extra knots to do that. But here is our single cobra keychain, and I'll show you what a double cobra keychain would look like and how different that is. Thank you so much for joining us for Knot Tying 101. And so you've learned just a few knots today, and you have this handmade, homemade craft to take with you to remember the few knots that you learned. And don't forget that this is just step 1, the very beginning of a learning process, because there is a whole wide world of exciting knots and the different ways that you can use them. So go ahead and have fun on that journey. If you're interested in more virtual content with us at the Greenbelt, visit sigreenbelt.org, and we'll see you there.